Are you nervous about your tax bill this year? Could your advisor help you lower your taxes even more? Well, keep listening as we unpack why taxes can be so complex and why having a solid strategy is key. Hello, and welcome to the Wealth Minded MD podcast with your money best friends. I'm Dr. Brittany Helford.
And I'm Dr. Leisha Taylor.
And of course, we're here to help you build wealth and make good money decisions so you can create the life you desire with more control over your time. Before we dive into the episode, I want to take a moment to highlight a financial planning company that really impressed me. Bonafide Finance. Alicia and I recently met with the founder, Ben Martnick, and let me tell you, his approach to financial planning is different in all the right ways.
Yeah, that's right. Ben doesn't just want to grow your money. He wants to make sure your investments actually align with your life goals. And if that wasn't good enough, Ben is not only a certified financial planner, but he's also one of the smartest people I've met. He is the go-to for student loan strategy and tax planning, two areas most advisors overlook, especially for high-income earners. Ben is one of the only people I know that can actually do the calculations to help you figure out if you should file your taxes separately or jointly with your spouse, and also tell you how it might impact your student loan payments. Plus, him and his team will also file your individual tax returns for you and provide tax strategy throughout the year.
What I also love is he's fee only. So you always know exactly what you're paying for, and you don't have to worry about his company selling you products or charging you extra fees or commissions.
So if you want advice that's honest, strategic, and tailored to you, check out bonafidefinance.com/wealthmindedmd. Him and his team specialize in helping doctors and high-income earners build their net worth in all the right ways. Email him today at hello@bonafidefinance.com, and don't forget to tell him we sent you.
All right, Brittany, we missed you when we were doing this interview with Ben. I noticed because I was just talking a lot and couldn't be stopped. And normally you're there to say, hey, Leisha, can you wrap it up? But I know from our prior episodes that you are in the midst of hiring a new tax strategist or just getting somebody on board, getting somebody to help you file your taxes. We know you and your husband's situation is good, but it's also complex. So update us on how things are going over there with you.
Alicia, I think I may have found someone. You're right. Our taxes are very complex, which makes the interview even more important. So I want to set up a call with everyone. And you want to also be extremely clear on what your needs are and how your life is currently operating. People, my life is very complex. Alicia knows this. I'm like, girl, listen, I know I'm pissing you off. Sorry, excuse the language, but I need you to tell me this again. We talked about it 3 months ago or last week. With that in mind, I really want to ensure that the team that we hired had all of the supports and were very proactive. And so sometimes when you have a tax accountant, they're like, oh, yes, whatever you need. We kind of bill a la carte. And if you need a strategy, then you just set up a call and then we'll bill you. Or if you need this. And I'm like, well, sometimes you don't know what you need. And sometimes you don't even have time to think about those needs because other life circumstances are occurring. And so for me, what has been most important is to ensure that the accountant is not only an accountant, they are a strategist and they have a team behind them that helps them to stay on top of things and helps us to communicate effectively. So I interviewed someone who was lovely. Maybe we'll invite her on the podcast. She was lovely. She is so knowledgeable. She's kind of doing things by herself. She's a tax strategist. So she's like, yeah, we'll file your taxes. But if it gets a little bit more complex, then we might have to add on a few things. And for me, I really just thought, okay, I really want to work with this person, but I think she's probably going to need some more support because we need some more support. We need people to remind us to make sure that we're filing our quarterly payments and all those things. So all of that to say, it's been a lot of interviews, but I think I have identified someone.
All right. So now I have questions because as you mentioned, we have an ad on this show, even at the top of the podcast, that Ben and Bonafide Finance, they are tax strategists. Him and his company are fantastic. They are great. But I just wanted to quickly kind of explain to our audience why you need extra help. you and your husband are both physicians, which I'm sure our audience knows it by this point, but you also have multiple businesses, right? Your husband has a private practice. You guys also are in the laundromat business, and you have rental properties, and you're investing in oil and gas. As complicated as one could make their taxes, you got K1s, you got this business with me, which we got to file our business taxes, which is a whole other thing. It's like, okay, there are some people, they have one job, they're employed. They're like, I just need someone to file my taxes. That is not you. There are other people, they're like, I have one job and I have some sources of 1099 income, and maybe they come from different sources, but I can keep things relatively all together. That's kind of my camp. Your camp is like, okay, it's me, it's my husband, it's our 20 businesses, it's the bookkeeping, it's the quarterly estimated taxes, it's our personal taxes. And it seems like all the people that you're interviewing are like, yeah, so that's a lot. We're going to have to bill you extra. The fee that you saw online does not apply to you. Exactly. So you've got a lot going on, and it's all for good reason. I mean, the good news about all of this is despite the fact that your taxes are more complicated, that usually means that you are making more money and bringing in sources of revenue. So you're doing real well financially, which is very great. But the tax situation is like enough to make you want to pull out your hair, it seems.
Yes, yes, you got it. You explained that perfectly. And so it is complicated. And even for me, I think when I was interviewing someone, I've laid it all out there. What do you see as opportunities for us? And he said, well, with multiple businesses, you just want to make sure that you keep things clean. And I was like, okay, yeah. That is what I'm struggling with right now. So kind of identified the biggest struggle of how do we keep every single thing clean? That's where the company really focuses on. Okay, you have the payroll. Let's make sure that the payroll is done correctly, that you got all the unemployment insurance, paid family medical leave, and all that stuff done. And let's make sure that the bookkeeping is clean for each and every business. And honestly, that's kind of where my struggle has been, is trying to manage it all. So the fact that I had an interview with someone, and without me saying that, they were able to identify my greatest pain points, kind of meant to me that, okay, this is the person that I need to be with. I think this is the person who's going to help me the most. And yes, the tax strategy is going to be really important. Maybe they help to lower the tax bill. Maybe they don't. Maybe they just help to simplify our lives. And I think that was one of the things that really resonated with me when you and Ben had that discussion. He's like, there's the tax strategy, there's the tax planning, but also just hiring someone to give you that peace of mind, to give you your energy back, to know that your taxes are done correctly. And on the back end, you're not going to have to deal with all the audits and logistics of dealing with the IRS. You got somebody who is there to support you to handle all of that. For me, given the complexity of our lives with everything that's going on, taxes is not something that I want to be bothered by. It's an obligation. I want to do it. I want to do it correctly. Yeah, we want to try to save some money and be strategic. But honestly, right now, it's like draining so much of my energy that I just want to have a team that's going to be supportive to give me a reminder. Hey, Brittany, your quarterly taxes are due. This is exactly what you got to pay, and this is how you pay it. And thank you. I appreciate it. You laid it all out there. You made it simple for me. So it just really depends on where you are. And I think that having that moment of reflection and pause to say, yeah, I actually want to get better with my bookkeeping. Actually, I want to do these things, but I got time to do them. So let me find a company who can do it for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Man, that's a lot. Well, I think that's a great segue into our episode today. So, you were, as we mentioned, out there saving lives in the hospital, and I'm sure some patient and their family is very grateful to have Dr. Halford by their bedside. But we wanted you back here to give us your opinion on these different things, because you are probably not the only person going through this, right? Maybe someone listening doesn't have a tax situation that is as complicated as yours, but they still do have a tax challenge, which is, I need someone to file my taxes. I'm not sure if the person that I've hired in the past has done a great job. Maybe there are some opportunities that I'm leaving on the table. Or Alicia and Brittany, it's not that I need to pay taxes. It's the fact that I don't know how much I need to pay from year to year. And I keep getting either this huge surprise bill in April or this huge refund. And I feel like I'm just not optimizing things in the best way. And so I think this is a good chance for us to kind of discuss things and get your expert take on some of these issues.
Leisha, I think you described that very well as an opening. There's a lot of emotional baggage that goes into taxes. And I can say for us in the 2019, 2020, when I had this discussion with my husband, okay, baby, we have to pay this much or we have to do this, it was always something that started a little bit of conflict between us in that moment. And I think whether you're married or partnered or single, when you think about your taxes, it feels like this huge weight of something that you have to do or something that you did wrong or you don't know if you're doing it right. right? And so I think the first thing that has been very helpful for me and something that was echoed by Ben is just reframing how we think about taxes. It doesn't mean anything about your performance, how smart you are, how well you did, how well you're not doing, right? It's something that needs to be done. It's something that needs to be paid. And yes, you can be strategic about it. There's always opportunities for improvement, but it doesn't mean anything about how well you're doing or how smart you are, et cetera. And then the other reframe for me, and I actually said this yesterday because she's like, well, what are some of your biggest pain points when I was interviewing someone? And I said, yeah, I want to lower my tax bill because who doesn't want to keep more of their hard earned money? I definitely do. But also in that same breath, I said, and I acknowledge that the fact that I have to pay so much taxes means that we're doing quite well financially. So it's like the burden of the blessing. And I think when you can kind of reframe what you have to pay in and how that really doesn't mean anything about how well you're doing on your taxes, then that helps to provide more clarity of how you could be strategic in your next steps.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. And I think another thing that really hit home for me was that the ultimate goal is tax efficiency and tax transparency, not necessarily paying $0 in taxes. I can't speak for everybody, but for myself, hear about the billionaires who don't pay anything in taxes, and you go, I want that. And I'm searching for a tax advisor that can do that for me. And one of the things that really hit home is unless you have your own corporation, it's going to be nearly impossible to make a good amount of money and pay $0 in taxes. Yes, there are some tax loopholes and incentives in the tax code that can help out tremendously, especially when it comes to real estate. But the goal isn't necessarily zero taxes, it's tax efficiency. And I think Ben gave a really good example of like, there might be some times in your life it makes sense to actually pay more in taxes, right? Maybe you're in a low income year. And so it makes sense to actually pay more taxes and do more Roth conversions, which will increase your taxes actually that year because you're going to be in a lower tax bracket. So it's not necessarily zero taxes, it's tax efficiency. And when I say tax transparency, what I'm meaning is you are aware of how much you're supposed to be paying so that, again, you don't file your taxes and realize, oh, shoot, I owe $20,000 to the IRS. It's like, oh, I already knew about how much I needed to be paying. And so I have estimated that when I paid my quarterly estimated taxes, or I have withheld enough from my job so that I don't get this surprise bill come April.
Yeah, I love that. And Ben and his team are all focused on your goals and ensuring that your goals align with your core values. And I think that that is essential in all aspects of your personal finances and also in your tax planning and your tax strategy, right? It's not just about getting the bill to zero, as you mentioned. It's about using the strategies that, yes, will work with you. Because I had a conversation yesterday. She's like, well, what other strategies are you not using that you've heard about? And I'm like, okay, well, there's these things called easements that I've heard about. I don't really fully understand all the details of it, but it seems like with that strategy, there is high probability that we're going to get audited in 5 to 7 years. One, I don't want to be thinking about the taxes from 5 years prior,
Yeah.
and whatever current year that I'm getting audited. And I also said that's just going to add additional conflict and stress to my life. Even if I have someone who is helping me to manage it, I still don't want to put myself in a position where we're definitely going to be audited. As you're thinking about what strategies to use or to not use, you really want to focus on who you are, what your goals are, and how your life operates. And I think that that was one of the really fantastic things to hear consistently throughout Ben's interviews is aligning your strategy, aligning what you're doing with your values to ensure tax efficiency from a financial perspective, but also from like an energetic perspective.
Yeah. And I think along those lines, and is very clear in your case, is the fact that taxes get more complex as you make more money. I think that that is something that we all kind of know intuitively or that you might assume intuitively, but something that I hear a lot of doctors say or a lot of people say is, I don't want to make more money because I'll just have to pay it in taxes. And it's like, well, you're not paying all of your extra money in taxes and working more to earn more. You still end up keeping more money on the back end, right? And so you shouldn't necessarily avoid making more money because you think you're going to pay more in taxes. Now, it is true that at certain income thresholds, you start phasing out of certain deductions, right? But that's one of the reasons why I think having a good tax strategist can help you with that. And it's also, to be honest, one of the reasons why I've done my own taxes for so long is because I am able to see, oh, if I make this extra money or if I put this away, if I lower my taxable income by this amount, oh, all of a sudden now I'm phased into this thing, or, now I can take advantage of this thing and let me see what the overall impact might be. And so that's one of the things that I really like, but it's also one of the things that I think a good tax strategist can do for you, of not only saying, hey, these are the things that you could take advantage of, but also saying, hey, these are some changes that you could make. Like if you did this, this is what could happen. If you did that, this is what could happen. And so it's understanding that the goal is not to avoid making more money because you're going to pay more in taxes, but it's also about understanding that as you make more income, because you have all of these nuances in the tax code, things can get a little bit more complex.
Yeah, definitely. And when you think about all of the moving pieces, sometimes it's just like, oh, I don't want to do that. This is too complicated. It's more complicated for me to do this, or it's more complex for me to even process that when you don't have the knowledge and the understanding. And that's why having a tax strategist, someone who knows the tax code, who's been moving the chess pieces and been successful, then that's where it really helps to provide kind of this peace of mind and knowing that things are done correctly. Leisha, I commend you for doing your own taxes. I cannot. But I also recognize that even though I'm not putting the numbers in the boxes and going online and filling out the 1040 forms and all of the different forms, what is still important is for me to understand how I need to implement certain changes in my behavior to set up various systems so that I can give them the best information to get the best output. Because I always say with taxes is trash in equals trash out. And so if you don't have the opportunity to give your tax accountant all the documentation that they need to actually implement the strategy, then you're not going to get the outcome that you desire. So yes, it gets more complex with filing your taxes. Yes, the strategy gets more complex, but I think even more so you want to make sure that you have accountability and that whoever you work with helps you to stay consistent with implementing that strategy. It also helps you to think about taxes not only in the single year, your tax filing year, but years to come. So you mentioned Roth conversions, right? And so there's an appropriate time to do that. And how do you think about what's going to be my income trajectory? What's going to be the tax strategy? And then how can I use those opportunities to do those Roth conversions to not trigger a higher tax bill, to maybe do it in a year that you have lower taxes? And so you kind of land in this neutral buffer zone. It might not be year one, it might be year 5 that you're doing that. But if when you have someone that helps you think about it in a longitudinal perspective, then it becomes easier to wrap your head around.
In light of that, if you're listening to this and you don't have a tax strategist or a tax planner, this might be the sign that you needed to get one. Because I know so many people, including high income earners, whether you're a physician or not, whose sole goal in April is to just want to file their taxes. Oh, I need to file my taxes. And there are plenty of people who can do a couple of training courses and learn how to quote unquote file taxes. But you get to a point where you need someone who's going to tell you this is a good year to do a Roth conversion, or this is a good year to not do a Roth conversion. You have some 1099 income. Did you know that you could deduct this? And let me show you the impact of that. You have 1099 income. Did you know you could set up a solo 401k and do this? I noticed that you gave me the documentation, but I didn't see the documentation for a backdoor Roth IRA. Did you happen to do that this year? Is there a reason why you did not? Do you have a financial advisor? And so I really do think that a part of this is not only tax filing, but it's tax strategy and tax planning. And one of the things that have been highlighted is that one of the hallmarks of a good financial advisor is somebody who can also do good tax planning and can help you invest and save money and utilize your money in a way that's tax efficient. But then you need the documentation to show that and give that to your tax accountant. And so if you are listening to this and you are somebody who, oh, I just give them the documentation and they quote unquote file my taxes for me, you really need to be asking yourself, have I had a meeting with this person beforehand? Have we discussed tax planning? Have we discussed my goals? Because if you haven't had that meeting, if you haven't done those things, then you may not actually have a tax planner. You may not actually have a tax strategist, in which case I would encourage you to get one. Because even if they quote unquote don't save you a ton of money this current year, at least you have peace of mind of knowing, hey, I took advantage of the incentives that were available to me, or I know what my options could have been, and I've made a decision to do this or to do that. And so I would highly encourage people to have a tax strategist, a tax planner on board that can sort of help you at least navigate what your options are.
Yeah, I I really appreciate that perspective of a good financial advisor also has his tax perspective as well. Because when I just think about our use of oil and gas to lower our tax bill, our W 2 income, we would not have been able to invest in oil and gas if we didn't have the cash flow. If we did not have that margin of money to put into the oil and gas to then offset our W 2 income. So when we're thinking about tax strategy, yes, there's the April 15th deadline, but really it starts at the beginning of the year and all throughout the year. Because if you don't have enough savings to invest in some of the strategies, oil and gas, solar energy, etc., or purchasing your rental property and doing like a cost segregation so that you can have depreciation on various assets within that property, all of these things require a little bit of cash flow for some of the advanced strategies. And so it requires that you are very much in tune with how your money is operating throughout the year so that you could take advantage of it. I have thought about, okay, how's this financial advisor knowledgeable about the taxes? But I hadn't really thought as deeply about it until Ben said that. And I'm like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense because oftentimes they tell me, well, you should talk to your tax accountant about this. And to have someone who is always considering those things, making sure that you put the appropriate assets in the right accounts to decrease your taxes, it all works together. And so Ben is phenomenal to have kind of that foundational knowledge to consider all of the implications of how things will move for you, again, in alignment with your goals.
Yeah. I love what you said there about having the cash flow available because my experience with a lot of financial advisors is they quote unquote want to optimize everything. They want to put everything into investment. And I get why they want to invest the money, right? They're like, oh, the opportunity cost, the money will compound over time. We got to put that money into a brokerage account. We got to put it in this. We got to have every dollar work for you. There is also something to be said about having money in cash available to deploy when you need it. Having quote unquote a buffer, leaving room for error. Sometimes we can be in a quest to make things so efficient that even the slightest change in plans can really cause a lot of stress. And just the ability to have some money and cash available to even take advantage of these things, right? Because what would have happened if you would have learned about oil and gas investments, but you didn't have the cash on hand to do it? Then you wouldn't have been able to take advantage of that investment. You'd had to wait a year. You had to save up over time. And so I think that can't be said enough about the importance of having some money in cash available to do these things. Because even if you do like a real estate investment and you want to do cost segregation analysis, that analysis is not free. It might cost you thousands of dollars. And again, having that money to even spend on that is really important. And so I would encourage people to, yes, we want you to invest. Yes, we want you to grow your wealth, but we also want you to have some cash on hand as a buffer. And by cash on hand, that doesn't mean sitting in a regular savings account. To me, that means sitting in a high yield savings account, sitting in a money market fund, something that's going to earn interest on your cash during this time. But I think you make a great point in that, yes, you want to have a financial advisor if you're not investing your money yourself, who also can think about taxes and make sure you have a tax planner or a tax strategist who can keep in mind your investments. And if those people, if your financial advisor and your tax strategist are not the same person, you need to make sure they're speaking to each other. Because unless you are an expert in both fields, you trying to relay a message that you slightly understand may not be the most efficient. So you need to make sure that they're communicating with each other and that you're keeping both of those things in mind. And again, that you have the cash on hand to deploy and enact some of these strategies if you deem them helpful for you.
Yeah, that's really important. The communication piece and like setting up your tax community or your financial community and making sure that everybody knows who's who. It's like when I'm on service, I'm a hospitalist. It's like cardiology tells me this, infectious disease tells me this, and then they kind of have differing opinions. I'm like, we're doing a group chat here. I'm not supposed to be going between you all. So, I wish there was a group chat feature for our personal finances. And unfortunately, sometimes it's not. But I think we should be very willing to say, okay, I'm going to connect you with this person. Or when you're interviewing tax accountants, what is your willingness? How do you communicate with other people who I already have established relationships in my financial community that I want to continue those relationships with, and ensuring that they have a willingness or a system or this history of connecting for us, like our actuary for our cash balance plan. How are you going to work with them just to make sure that all the documents are sent over seamlessly and et cetera? So that really is a great point. And one of the things that I also want to highlight here is that sometimes these advanced strategies require a bit of risk. So we've talked about oil and gas in other episodes. I don't know which number at this point.
We'll try to have our editor link it in the show notes.
Yes. But essentially, whatever is the amount of your investment, so say we invest $100,000 in oil and gas, we would get about $80,000 to $85,000 reduction of our taxable income that year. So if we made $100,000 and we invested $100,000 in oil and gas, then it would look like our income for that year was about $15,000 to $20,000, right? And so we would just be taxed on that $15,000 to $20,000, which is fantastic. But what if the well comes up dry? So yes, we got the tax benefit, but it's also an investment, which means that we're supposed to get some money back from the money that we put in. But what if the well comes up dry? Then we've just taken a risk there. So I just want to say that some of these advanced strategies require that you take a bit of risk. And with that risk, you want to make sure that all of your bills are paid, that you still have an emergency fund just in case something else comes up, that you can still make this investment without it impacting your day-to-day life. So this is why the personal finance goes hand in hand with your tax strategy, is because you want to make sure, as you said, you have that buffer, you have that margin, because some of these things may not actually return all of the investment benefits that are touted by using them, because there are some additional risks.
I have a question for you, Brittany, because I think that brings up a good point. There might be people listening to this that are very interested in this. Wow, Brittany's investing in oil and gas. Brittany bought a laundromat business. Brittany has a rental property. I remember you talking about short-term rentals at one point, and the fact that you hire your kids, you do all of these things. Some people might be listening to this and saying, you know what, me and my spouse, or maybe they're not partnered in, it's just themselves, they can't take advantage of all of those things, but maybe they could take advantage of one or two. How did you and your husband decide which incentives in the tax code, which tax efficient investments you wanted to take advantage of? Because I think a lot of people's first line is, I'm going to max out my work retirement accounts. I'm going to do my backdoor Roth IRA. If I have 1099 income, I'm going to set up some sort of solo 401k or potentially a cash balance plan. And you've done a lot after that. How did you decide which after that you wanted to take advantage of?
That's a great question. I wish I had to say, oh, Alicia, I planned it all out, because I didn't. It didn't happen like that. With the laundromat, there was a lot more planning involved with that process and thinking about how that's going to impact us down the road as far as our retirement planning and also paying our children and tax reductions. But in other oil and gas, it's just like, okay, we had our CPA at the time who did a calculation. So they would do projections for us every quarter. They presented an opportunity: if you invest this much in oil and gas, and it would decrease your taxes that you owe by this amount, and this is what the investment will return typically. So that's how we got into oil and gas. And the first year that we did it was 2023. Prior to that, I wasn't very familiar with utilizing oil and gas. And sometimes you hear about all of these strategies. You might be listening to this podcast, like Leisha said, and like, what? I didn't know about that. I don't know if that will work for me. If you evaluate, okay, you have the money in a bank, you still have cash flow, you still have your emergency fund, I can try this to see if it works out. So our first year, we just tried with a small amount. We tried with 25 grand.
Somebody listening said, what? Brittany's definition of small is very different, but keep going. Says 25 grand don't mean nothing to you. Keep going.
I didn't say it doesn't mean anything. I just said that relative to some of our other investments and how much we put in 2024, it was a smaller amount. And it was the minimum required that we can invest. So I just wanted to see how it works. I'm willing to take the risk with this amount. If we lose it, then at least we got the tax benefit, and let's see how it works out. And so it worked. And then we did it again. In 2025, we did not utilize oil and gas because that's when we purchased the laundromat. And with the laundromat, I have a whole strategy for it, and we can do a deeper dive. But with the changes in the tax code under the One Beautiful Bill Act, you can do 100% bonus depreciation on a lot of the equipment and the products that you purchase for your business. So we knew that the laundromat that we purchased was run down, that we would need to buy new equipment. I did an estimate of how much that equipment would cost. And I'm like, oh, well, this could reduce our taxable income depending on how I use it. If I work in the laundromat, there are all these things. We could talk about it in more detail, but it could reduce our taxable income by this amount. Okay, well, we don't actually need oil and gas this year because we have these other things to help with the tax deduction. And then this is how it's going to work in subsequent years if we were to use 100% bonus depreciation. So all of that was a very long answer, Alicia, to say that I don't think that I have been very strategic per se at planning these things year by year. It's just like what opportunity is presenting to us, what risk tolerance do we have at the time? And then with the laundromat, because we were acquiring a business, there was a lot more planning that I put into that strategy before we actually did the business for the acquisition.
I have a question for you. Employing these strategies makes your taxes more complex. This is one of the reasons why you got to go through 80 different interviews to figure out which tax strategist team you're going to hire. I'm sure people knew how much you paid in taxes or tax strategy. They'd be like, wow, that was more than my entire tax bill for the year. Anyway, my point is that your tax situation is more complex. It costs you money because of that complexity. And it probably is a lot more to like manage. So I wondered, like, is there a goal that you all have in mind in terms of taxes and income? Is the goal to like build wealth as quickly as possible, employing various different strategies? Was the goal, wow, we just pay so much in taxes, we need to start investing in a way that really is going to reduce our taxable income? Because I think there's this balance. We talked about this before between complexity and simplicity, between optimizing things and keeping things very simple. Someone might be listening to this and saying, wow, that seems like a lot. I don't have the bandwidth for that. I'm just going to max out work retirement accounts, back to a Roth, that sort of thing, and call it a day. And other people, such as yourself, are like, I'm going to have 15 businesses. So was there an overarching goal that you and your husband had? Like, we need to build wealth. We need to have this amount of dollars as our net worth by this age, and this is going to help us get there? Or was it more like, we're just paying so much in taxes, this is one of the main ways that we're going to reduce it? Like, what kind of went into, I'm going to deploy all of these different strategies?
Yeah, you don't want to put the tax cart before the horse because, as you mentioned, it adds a level of complexity. For every dollar that we earn, we could definitely just go to work and I could work more shifts in the hospital to generate more income. It's going to be taxed a bit differently, but some might perceive that as being easier because that's what you have already established. For me, and I don't know if my husband has the same vision, it's that freedom. We want to seek freedom. We want to seek control over our schedules. I actually just said this to him last night. I was like, oh, I'm retiring at 50. He looked at me, he's like, okay, so let's break that down. And I was like, oh, I've already calculated it out. Like, if I continue to do what we're doing now, then I can retire at 50. Now, I'm the type of person, like you said, I got 50, 11 jobs. Like, I got 50, 11 businesses. I'm not the type of person who's just going to sit down and do nothing, especially our kids will still be fairly young. But it gives me the freedom to say, I want to cut down to 50%, or I just want to do this type of work. So that is what we are seeking. With the laundromat, the business acquisition is that eventually that's going to become passive. It is more active now because we're growing the business. And so I have to be active in it. And that allows us to have the tax benefit of the 100% bonus depreciation for the machines because I'm actively working in the business. Like, I'm not washing people's dirty drawers and
I was
folding their
wondering,
laundry.
but I said, man, you went to medical school to do that. That sounds like a lot, but I'm not going to judge. We all have different priorities. I was thinking it. Glad you said it.
You know what? There was one day where this customer was there and he still had a few things to fold. So I helped the attendant fold a few pieces of his laundry, but no, girl, I'm not about to be in there folding people's clothes. We have attendants who are very loyal, who are very knowledgeable about the business, and they run the business. So all I have to do is focus on the high level, growing the business. Okay, how do I build contracts with people? How do I promote and market this? And so that is where I like to establish relationships. And it doesn't require me to be on anybody else's time except my own.
Mm-hmm.
And because we're optimizing the system, then that means in the future, every dollar that we could generate in retirement, that means that's 25 less dollars that we have to save now. And then we could pass on this business to our children. So tax strategy is one of the things I'm always thinking about. How can we leverage this thing to reduce our taxes? And if there's a way to do it, then that's why I need a tax strategist. And I'm also figuring the things out on my own. But really, the goal is financial freedom and generational wealth. And so we thought that this business acquisition would allow us to do that because we could optimize a system that we don't necessarily have to work in and become an employer instead of an employee.
You're very busy because I'm like, wow, you're a whole doctor saving lives in the hospital. And then you've like, oh yeah, I'm like running my husband's private practice and I have this business with Leisha and I have a laundromat. And by the way, I have a rental property. And by the way, oil and gas. And I'm currently interviewing new tax strategists. It's like, wow, that seems like a lot. Most people are like, I'm tired from one of those things. It just seems like a lot. And I think as I'm listening to you talk about it, I'm like, wow, this is like a reminder to me that we are all different and we may have different priorities. Cause I don't know, never say never, but I don't know if there's a world where I would want to manage a laundromat. I think for myself, I want to have financial freedom. So I think our end goal is very similar.
Hmm.
And I think for me, one of the things that I constantly ask myself, and this is like a dilemma that I have in my mind, is like, how do I want to get there? Do I want to work as much as possible and be able to invest as much money as possible and get there that way? That is one option. And it's a viable option. It's one that a lot of doctors pursue. I think the downside of that option is that you end up paying a lot of money in taxes, which is what you and your husband had discovered, obviously. And so it's like, okay, well, how can we lower our taxes? Because we pay so much in taxes, it's almost like, as you mentioned before, we're working a third of the year for free because our taxes are in 30 something percent, maybe even 40% when you add up all the different taxes. And so it's like, is there a different way that I could do this? And for some people, it's like, okay, well, maybe we cut back on our medicine jobs, on our main W-2 jobs, and we start earning some 1099 income. So then we can write off some of those deductions, right? And then it's like, oh, we can do this other thing and we can save money in taxes that way. But then in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, am I now working more just in different ways? And for me, it's like, well, if I enjoy the work, I don't mind it. But if I don't enjoy the work, then I do mind it. It's like this constant battle between, should I work more in my W-2 job or should I try to do these other things? And I think the decision is really, doing those other things bring me joy and bring me happiness. And if the answer
Hmm.
is yes, then maybe I want to do that. But I think for me, there is always this pull between what can I do to lower my taxes? I pay a lot. And what can I do to sort of create this sense of freedom right now? And maybe that does mean working a little bit less and earning a little bit less. And so to me, there's always this push and pull of, should I be working more to earn more? That's the easiest quote unquote thing to do because I'm a physician. Or should I cut back and try to employ these different tax strategies to save me more money? So I'm just constantly going back and forth. And to be honest, I'm not really sure. Some days I think I'm doing it right. And other days I'm like, yep, nope, this needs to change.
Totally get that. Totally get that. And you are very much right. It's an individual decision. I am working more in right now, especially with this new acquisition to get the business up to speed. My mother always told me that anything worth having is worth working for. I'm reminded that it's a labor of love. Anything that you're trying to build is not going to be easy. With my children, shoot, these babies still waking me up in the middle of the night. Okay. So it is a labor of love. And I see the laundromat as right now, it is very active because I am establishing the system. But in 2 years, it is going to be very passive. I will not be managing it. In fact, we're going to hire a manager probably in the next 6 months. We have someone who we have in mind who's going to help to offload a lot of the activity. But I have to be active because this is a business that I'm currently building. I'm growing the business. It challenges me in a different way. And so I completely hear what you're saying. Yeah, there are some days that I'm exhausted and I question, like, should we have purchased this thing? But then God gives me glimpses of the potential. He gives me glimpses of the freedom and it reminds me of the logic and the reasoning that we had planned and put forth before we actually purchased it. All that to say, I hear you completely. And
I'm not judging. I'm just like, wow, that's not for me. It's become abundantly clear.
I think, yeah, it really just depends on each person and the phase in your life. Maybe you'll find some other thing that you're like, I never would have imagined in a million years that I would be doing this.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay. So we went off the deep end, but our point of the episode was about taxes. And just to summarize here for our audience, one of the things we talked about was reframing how you view taxes and that the goal is not to avoid making more money to avoid taxes. The goal is to really think about how you can be more efficient. And do you have a tax strategist who can help you come up with different ways to be more efficient? For those of us who are high income earners, that might mean that our tax situation gets a little bit more complex, which underscores the importance of having somebody who not only files your taxes, but can help you plan throughout the year. And some of that planning might be doing as you do, Brittany, which is taking advantage of different kinds of investments that will save you some money in taxes on the back end. We also talked about how there is no one size fits all. The goal isn't necessarily to get a big refund each year. It's to know the exact amount or close enough to the amount that you have to pay so that there is no surprise. Step one, do I have someone who's actually filing my taxes correctly? Step two, do I have somebody who can help me plan and do tax strategy throughout the year so that I don't have this big tax bill in April? I don't have a big surprise in April. Step three, do I have somebody who is also able to let me know about which incentives might make sense for me to take advantage of this year and which don't? And then step four, should I be employing new strategies? And are they letting me know what those new strategies might be and how I might be able to qualify for them? And so those things are all helpful. Peace of mind is helpful, as Brittany underscored earlier. You got to coordinate. If you have a financial advisor, you need to make sure your financial advisor is talking to your tax planner and vice versa. And of course, if you're listening to this and you're like, I got some issues in my own life. If you're listening to this and maybe you have in the past only just filed your taxes or hired someone to file your taxes, this is your sign to maybe start thinking about having somebody who can provide tax strategy. And of course, Ben and his team at Bonafide Finance can do that for you, unless you have 80 businesses like Brittany, in which case we might need to employ another team. If that is you, if you want a tax strategist, if you want someone who can help you tax plan throughout the year and can help you with your investments, if you so choose, please contact Ben and his team at Bonafide Finance. They are only accepting new tax clients through the end of this month, so through the end of February. And so if you reach out to him in March, he's going to say, hey, we got to wait till next tax year because, he needs to make sure that him and his team service the clients that are already there. And so if you are somebody who wants a tax strategist, now is your time to contact Ben and his team at Bonafide Finance. The link is in the show notes.
Awesome. And now it's time for some fun money. Alicia, how are you spending your money on fun?
Girl, I'm trying to wrap up and warm up, okay? Because the weather has been crazy. We've had 2 snow weekends, which one really wasn't snow. It was like ice, supposedly. But I wasn't complaining because I got off work next Monday and I was like, hallelujah, Lord loves me. The next weekend, it was some snow flurries. I said, well, does it only snow on the weekend? I need this to happen during the weekday, okay? But anyway, it was very cold. I looked at the temperature one day and it said it was 20 degrees, but feels like 1. I said, feels like 1? Am I back in Washington, D.C.? Like, what is happening? I moved to the South for a reason, and one of those reasons was weather. So anyway, I have to buy new sweaters, new pants. I started thinking, do I need the jeans with the fur on the inside? When I'm running outside, I'm like, oh, I need the thicker tights and leggings. I gotta go buy some more stuff. So anyway, I'm trying to stay warm. I saw a photo of you, I think, on IG where you were just playing in snow. I said, oh, again, we live different lives. I am trying to stay warm over here, buying new sweaters and just warm clothing.
It's so funny, my gosh. I was not playing in snow, people, but sometimes I do. I have young kids. We layer up and we go for it. It's so funny that you talked about the snow weekends. We also had a snow weekend. We had so much snow, Alicia. There were mountains of snow. I have an old car, Saturn. She's 20 years old. And I'm like, listen, this Emerald, she's not about to make it through this snowstorm. So I parked her right in our work garage for 4 days. And I walked to work and I had on so many layers. I was like sweating once I got inside. I had to strip down. So I completely understand needing heavier clothes as the temperature drops. And yeah, it's really funny hearing your description of that. For me, I am purchasing magnet tiles. Do you know what these things are? You have nieces and nephews. Magnet tiles?
No, but you always get me hip on the latest stuff. So I am intrigued.
Oh, girl, they are lovely. This is like your next birthday gift for your nieces and nephews. So they are essentially various shapes that have magnets on them. And so you could build all different structures, dinosaurs, etc. Depending on the type that you purchase, they have like little people or dogs. And so we recently purchased this marble run where you could create tubes and drop the marble and then it goes all the different ways. They're great for kids, but they're also great for adults and to build in that time because you can work on, oh, let's build a strawberry. And there are all these different videos of the things that you can create with these magnet tiles. So we have about 3 packs of magnet tiles, different variations now, but they are so fun. And it's very refreshing to see how engaged my kids get. But recently my husband, he took them on his own time, own area and created this fantastic marble run. So he was very, very engaged with them.
Is it like a Lego set, but it's magnets?
Yes. Yep.
I see. So I'm going to need to see some of the things that you all have created. And as we've discovered multiple times throughout this episode that we're in different tax brackets. So are they budget friendly?
They can be expensive. But I purchased ours at TJ Maxx and they had them on clearance. So there's one pack that was like a little travel pack. So it's very condensed. So I was like, oh, this is perfect for when we go on vacation because sometimes I don't have things for my kids to do at the hotels. And if you go on a family cruise, the cruise ship, like the walls are metal so they can put them on the wall.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. So it's very fun. I think you should invest in them. Bring them over for your nieces and nephews. They're going to love you and you're going to have a great time to see what you all can create.
Okay, I'm going to add this to the list. Okay, I love it. All right. If you enjoyed this episode, hopefully you found this helpful. That is fantastic. We will come back to you again next week with some more great info. Have a lovely afternoon.
Hello, everybody. It's me, Brooke. I'm recording a little disclaimer for my mommy, Dr. Brittany Halford, and her friend, Dr. Lisa Taylor. Just so you know, they're not financial advisors, tax professionals, lawyers, or financial planners. Everything you hear is for education and entertainment. It's not strict financial advice, So use your best judgment, chat with a tax professional, and all those other people that you need to talk to. Thanks for tuning in today. Keep cruising on your journey to wealth and wellness. Bye-bye.